Alright everyone, if you listen to James Comey, who is not exactly, I think at this point, considered trustworthy by most Americans, Donald Trump is a really weird, slimy, mob boss style character who's basically inept, dishonest, doesn't really know what's going on, probably fucked up in the head in some way, and oh, it's possible that he paid Russian prostitutes to pee on the Obama's bed. It was funny, a couple days ago when the first part of this, sort of came to light. It was funny to see some people, like maybe a Mad Owl or something, they're like, oh, maybe this means that the Steele dossier is actually true. No, it wasn't fake after all, because Comey wrote a private classified memo to himself that could contain anything. It's just his opinion. You're essentially saying that the head of the FBI, if they wanted to, could simply write a memo about anything and it naturally becomes true. It becomes canonical simply because they happen to have that position. Like, they're not a bureaucratic head like any other. Like, oh, can the head of the EPA do that? Can the head of the Department of Education do that? Can the CIA's leader do that? And so if Pompeo gets in there and writes a memo saying, Trump is the best person I've ever fucking seen, he should be emperor, we need to get rid of term limits, like all his enemies are totally fucked up. Are you going to take that and make it canonical and like crown him emperor or something? See the danger of trusting bureaucracy. That's all that Comey is. And by the way, these same people hated Comey when he was investigating Clinton. When it looked like he was going to nail her to the wall, they hated him. When he came out and said basically to the American people, hey, Clinton broke the law, but I'm not going to prosecute her because, we can't really prove it, which is basically the cop-out. We can't prove intent. This is the only time in American history where that has actually mattered to the FBI. When he came out and did that, he was crucified. He was crucified by people on the right for not jailing her because they wanted Clinton to go to jail, which I told everyone wouldn't happen. The left crucified her too for not fully exonerating her, for seeming to waffle around. That's his way of saying, yeah, I should technically prosecute her, but, I can't actually do that. I'm between a cock and a hard place. If I prosecute her, I probably end up accidentally falling on a dozen bullets. I end up like Vince Foster. If I don't prosecute her, though, well, it's a miscarriage of justice. It's going to be pretty evident. All I know, I'll just say we can't prove intent and hope that the American people accept the argument. This is the same James Comey that now writes a book, largely sourced from his own opinion, basically, oh yeah, I'm James Comey. I talked to Trump a few times. Everything I say is true. Just fucking believe me. Just fucking believe me. I can't prove any of this, but, and I got a $2 million book deal, so it's a good thing. Gonna go straight to #1 on the New York Times list, probably stay there for 1,000 years because they don't like Donald Trump. But I don't believe Comey. I believe Trump, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you honestly why I believe him. It has to do with his denial. Have you ever noticed that politicians, when they deny something, the tendency is if they deny it very directly and explicitly, you can take it to the bank, it's pretty true. Politicians don't tend to do that, but politicians are cowards usually. So if they deny something completely, one of two things is usually true. Either they're telling the truth, which I think is what's happening here, or they covered it up so well that they know that it'll never come to light, so they can pretend that it's objectively that they're telling the truth. Otherwise, what do politicians do? I did not have inappropriate relations with that woman. I'm not a crook. And they say things that beat around the bush. They don't ever fully, explicitly deny a charge against them. They just beat around the bush over and over again. Oh, no. Or they'll give a half-assed denial, and then they'll stop talking to the press. They disappear for a few days. Whenever they're asked about it, they just ignore it, or they claim, like a Ted Cruz. When Ted Cruz gets confronted about all the females he supposedly romped around with, where there's no actual evidence that he did, but he never actually denied it explicitly. Yeah, there's probably a reason for that, Ted. Yeah, Lion Ted may be a more apt nickname than we think. Whereas Donald Trump, consistently here, on multiple counts, has come out and flatly denied most of the allegations ever made against him. Not with the Billy Bush tape. I mean, you can't really deny it. It is audio of Donald Trump talking. And he can pretend, oh, well, maybe that wasn't actually me. No, that's a cop-out. You know that you said that. It could be just bragging. I'm sure that Melania being mad is probably part of the reason why he denied it. Maybe she actually didn't realize that his on-air persona carries over a little bit into real life, like actually a little bit into his dealings with the female sex or something. Maybe Melania didn't realize that, and she's been pissed consistently for months. Who knows? Not that it's really my business. I don't fucking care. I don't care who Trump screws as long as it's consensual. It involves adults, preferably with Melania's knowledge. It's like basically, hey, I'm a billionaire. You got everything that you want, but I like to chase skirts, says Trump. You fucking sue me or something. As for this out of wedlock child, that is literally an Inquirer story. It's quite literally from the Inquirer. You know what I bet happened? Here's what I think happened with that. With that story, it's even more complex. I think what happened is the Inquirer got the story. They said, wow, this is juicy. Trump had an out-of-wedlock child in the 1980s. Then the doorman comes forward and gives them the story. Someone comes forward and says, yeah, I've got a kid. They found out the story wasn't true, and they're like, oh shit, Donald Trump is going to sue us into fucking non-existence because he's the most fucking powerful person in this city. We've got to bury this story. We'll give you 30 grand. Shut up about this. We don't want any part in it. Don't tell anyone you came to us. Don't tell anyone you met with us. Don't tell anybody that we almost ran the story. We're friends with Donald Trump. Trust me, we don't want that friendship to end. We will go out of business, or he'll buy us up, can our asses, and he'll be the head of the Inquirer. I guarantee you that's what actually happened within that case. As for the Comey memos, no, I don't believe Comey at all. Why should I trust the dude? He lets Clinton go, clearly in violation of our own legal system. There's no litmus test for proving, this person had bad intent versus, this person broke the law, ignorance is no excuse. Ignorance is no excuse. There is no other human being. Look at the Vermonter involved. That kid who took the picture in the nuclear sub. And they threw him in jail. There was no ill intent. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He wanted to show his family pictures of the inside of a really cool submarine. Well, this is where I get to work. Wow, here's the missile tubes. Look at this computer. Wow, that's so high tech. Here's a fucking nuclear reactor aboard and everything. That's what he wanted to do. Trump, by the way, ends up pardoning him, which was, by the way, an excellent move. My fellow Vermonter gets to come back, live his life, and not be, under the problem of having a criminal record. Because he had already served his time. I actually didn't know that at the time. I thought they just sprung him from jail. But obviously, he had his record expunged because of Trump. Good on him. One of the best decisions Trump ever made for those of us who have Vermont pride. A slipping amount because of fucking Phil Scott, but it's still there. The state can be better than it is. Mainly by not trying to fix things that aren't broken, as I pointed out before. But yeah, I believe Trump. He denies it explicitly. He didn't waffle around. He didn't make a tweet saying, James Comey is just a liar. His memos are bullshit or something. No, he explicitly denies the specific content of the memos. That's not the hallmark of a lie within politics. A lie within politics is basically a roundabout. Denying a straw man or something like that. That's what politicians do. And everyone tends to do this. They won't deny things explicitly. If it's actually true, their psychology, for some odd reason, compels them to just sort of shrug and look at their feet. No, not really. You're wrong. Oh, look at that. Something shiny over there. That's what politicians do. It's what a Clinton does. It's what a Mueller probably will end up doing in the future. It's going to be pretty funny. It's what a Comey would do. It's certainly what McCabe or whatever his name there was doing. We've seen this before. We've seen it with Anthony Weiner. What was his name years ago? John Edwards, I think. The dude who cheated on his wife when she was suffering with cancer. And he had cast himself off as the really slick, sort of conservative Democrat, so the evangelical boyish charm look. He almost looked a little bit like Nick Fuentes, I think. It's been a long time since I bothered to look him up, but he was cheating on his cancer-stricken wife. You come out and say, well, you're cheating on your cancer-stricken wife. I think it was the Inquirer that broke that story. Oh, not really. No, I don't know that woman. Well, who's that? That's basically what happens within politics. Trump, though, is also, he has an additional reason, perhaps, to believe, and that's it's very public what he's not talking to the press in passing and then quickly running off to his plane, never to speak of it again. He's addressing it on Twitter in front of, millions and millions of people all over the world. Kind of difficult to take back a tweet when, 10 minutes later, 10,000 people have retweeted it. Becomes a little bit more difficult. Everything, by the way, that he tweets is like instantly archived. There are people out there with bots that just instantly archive everything that Trump says on every platform. They do that because they know it's like the mission accomplished stuff. Here's another thing. although I disagree with the Syria strikes, I see him as problematic, unhelpful. I can understand the larger reason, but I don't support warmongering. I don't care. Even if it was only a few civilian injuries, I'm against it in principle, and it seems a little bit weird to spend $150 million on missiles just to bomb 3 locations. You know, if that's actually true, of course. I don't know, because I'm not in Damascus. Trump says mission accomplished, and then he gets to run up and say, oh, well, people are fixated on that. I knew that the press was going to do that. Yeah, that's why he included that. So that people would think of Bush, and hopefully they would tell him to not strike Syria so he doesn't have to strike it again. It's probably a maneuver to prevent a larger war and actually help enforce the concept of leaving the nation of Syria. If that's the case, that's actually a very good thing. I just think there may be other ways that could have been solved. They say mission accomplished. Get Assad to back down diplomatically without striking anything, and it would have been 10 times better. Yeah, I don't believe Comey. His book is probably BS. Comey's memos are probably BS. It's just the way that it works. Comey, who by the way is 6'7", so you wouldn't want to meet him in a dark alleyway, I suppose. Especially since he knows ways of covering it up if he shoots you in the head. So he's potentially a worst nightmare essentially. Comey, I think, wanted money. He lost his job. Wasn't he in the bathroom, like, taking a shit when he heard, too? I think that was Comey. It was one of these people got fired spur of the moment that way. Comey's out of a job. That $2 million is going to, subsidize. That's going to get him his extra limousine. Going to be a cushy lifestyle. And now, not only does he get $2 million up front, he gets royalties, which is going to be substantial. He gets speaking tours. Oh, trust me, people will drop 10 grand to hear Comey speak. He'll be like the Democratic Party's darling. You can expect that Comey's going to be visible up through the midterms and into 2020. You can expect that the Democrats are going to try to trot him out. Maybe he'll even run for office. Maybe he runs for the presidency. It would be hilarious if that happened. Actually, I kind of hope that he throws his hat in the ring and does something like that. That'd be the most interesting race ever. But I believe Trump in his denial because it's explicit, it's direct, it doesn't beat around the bush, it's very public. That's not typical for a politician when they're caught out in a scandal. The same thing's true for Pissgate and a lot of this other stuff. I just don't believe Russian collusion. How many fucking times has he denied it already? If there was any possibility in his mind that he was actually going to get nailed for it, he wouldn't want to talk about it so much. He'd want people to focus on other things. He'd be doing other things and telling people to focus on it. Instead, he invokes Russia every other day. He almost seemingly doing the job of his opponents for him. That's, I'm sure, by design. I'm sure that there is a greater strategy involved with public relations on the Russian collusion thing. With Mueller, when he attacks Mueller, Comey, McCabe, and all these others, there's a reason for this. He's not nuts. He's not nuts enough, at the very least, give him credit for being sane enough not to attack people that have dirt on him. That wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. That's about all. Peace out.